You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Fosma Moon, and Seth Miller. Hello, and welcome to episode 428 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I am Stephen Seagraves, joined today by Mr. Fosma Moon. How you doing?
Good. Not too bad. Good morning.
Seth is gallivanting around Venice today, I'm sure. He might be taking a nap by now.
He probably is.
His afternoon siesta before continuing on. So,
well, and he didn't get much sleep on his flight over.
It was bumpy, right? They had 180 mile an hour tailwinds.
It was bumpy and it was short.
Yeah. He did Dulles to, what was it? Dulles to
Brussels.
Brussels. Yeah, that is a short flight to begin with. So,
yes.
Crazy stuff. We'll have to wait for him to come on the show and tell us about it. But I don't think he enjoyed the experience.
No.
He's
in Venice now.
What's that?
He's in Venice now, so he's having a good time.
Exactly. And you're on the West Coast with me this week. Well, you're not with me, but we're both on the West Coast, so timing-wise, this worked.
Yes. No weird time zone challenges today. No time zone math this week.
Yeah, exactly. And I just wanted to do a quick follow-up on something we talked about last week. So Seth and I talked about, while you were gone, Foz, we talked about Air France and KLM charging for seats in business class. So you make a business class reservation, you pay $10,000 for your ticket, and then you're charged another $200 to book a seat. And we got some feedback, and Kevin, I don't know, Kevin, if you want me to use your last name, so I'm just going to use your first name, replied to me on Twitter and says, it's the point of charging for those business class seats isn't revenue. It's keeping more seats free for your own elites who book later. And he actually likes BA's policy for this reason. And I get that. I get what he's saying. Is it the right thing to do, though?
No, because the airlines could just block seats to hold their elites, and this is one of the things that, and it shouldn't just be in business class, right? I'm a big fan of this. As an elite, you get penalized for a last-minute booking.
Yeah,
and I would love to see all the airlines hold seats till the end,
mm-hmm.
right? Because if it's really about holding seats, then why even charge?
Yeah, you could just hold the seats and then open them up, right?
Exactly.
At 24 hours out or whatever.
Yeah. Right. It is a money grab. It's an absolute money grab, because if it wasn't a money grab, if it was really about saving seats for elites, they would just save seats for elites, right?
Yeah.
Eons ago, pre-merger United used to do that automatically. You would book a seat, at least in coach, and it would block the seat next to you automatically.
Oh, the good old days! I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could get a whole, if you and a partner were flying in coach on an exit row, say, you could get a whole row to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, the good old days.
Look, if Apollo could do that, any of the other current GDSs and PSSs could do that at this point, if they just choose not to.
Yeah, I think Kevin's point is more well, they're not charging elite, so it's okay. And I think it's good that they're not charging elites. I think it would be super ridiculous if they did. But at the same time, I think the problem is simply solved by what you suggested, which is just block the seats, and then if you're an elite, you get access to them, and that seems fair. And if you book late as a non-elite, and there's no seats on the seat map, you wait until 24 hours and you get a seat then. So
well, yeah, and to your point, right? You are nickel and diming the customers if they're paying $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 for a ticket, and you're going to charge them $100 for a seat assignment or $200 for a seat assignment. That is nickel and diming on that expensive of a ticket.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what Kevin says when he replies. On this topic, right? I booked a premium economy ticket on BA for work, and I'm going to Lisbon, and it's interesting. One, I was able to select seats on all the segments, which I thought was interesting, for free. I didn't think that was possible. Guess I was wrong.
Is your Alaska number there?
Yeah, but I'm not an elite. I'm a Ruby or whatever, One World Ruby. So
that might be enough.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what it is. So I was able to select seats, which is great. And I called BA today because I can book a Avios reward on the outbound, and I would love to have a bed to sleep in on the Portland to London flight. And they want 30,000 Avios for it, which I don't think is terrible.
No, that's not horrible.
It's a little high for me, like going from premium economy to business. It seems like it should be a little lower, but I'm fine with it. The amount a couple of experiences with BA. One, their call-in system is very strange. Like, you don't call the booking line to do Avios stuff. You call Executive Club, which I find just kind of weird.
That's what it always used to be.
Is it? I don't know. I've never called BA before.
No. Like, even on all the other airlines, upgrades were always done not by reservations, but by the
I got you.
mileage program.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. The other part, though, was I called and I said, look, what would it cost to just do a paid? Is there any paid upgrades available? And right off the bat, the guy said, well, look, this is it's a TA booking. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything with it. He's like, but I'll try. And he said, because of that, like because of the way the fare is built, I can't do the outbound separately than the return. So, I had to price it as a, round trip up fare. And I was like, wait a second. Is he trying to pay the fare difference? Which is what I think he was trying to do.
Right.
And then he comes back and he goes, I can't do it with a TA ticket. You have to fly the first segment and then
so once they own it, once they take ownership of the ticket, then they can change it.
Yeah. So I think I need to call back and see if I can do the paid, because I know that BA offers paid upgrades.
But I believe it's within 24 hours.
Well, some people are saying 24 hours, and other people are saying you can do it. They randomly do it before the flight too. Like, you can, if there's space, they'll sell it to you. So I asked the guy, I was like, well, when I check in, am I going to be able to upgrade then? Like, do you think will it even offer me an upgrade because that's a TA ticket? And he's like, I don't know, maybe not. This stuff drives me nuts. Like, it shouldn't be this complicated, right? Or am I crazy?
I mean, the problem is, right, the challenge is nobody knows how this stuff works.
Yeah.
And because nobody understands how this stuff works, nobody can give you a clear answer.
Yeah.
Right. And I had a very interesting conversation with United this week, and we can definitely talk about it if we need to.
Yep.
But it was just like, they're all too often customers know the policies better than the employees, but the employees aren't willing to listen.
Yeah. And they just want to tell you this is the way it is.
Yeah, exactly. And so it is really just interesting. But what do you do? You're at the mercy, right? Like, I had an issue where I knew the policy very candidly, very succinctly, and the airport fought me and then documented my record. So when I called in to customer care, they're like, you're wrong. And I later did have another employee confirm that I was right. So now I need to go back and say, you need to go check this, and this. But it is fascinating. And the problem is, right, the agent I was talking to was like, I've been here for 37 years. This has never been the case. I'm like, yes, it has.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you do, right? And the technology aspect, it makes it even worse, right? Because technology does not, as we know, airline technology does not behave consistently.
Yeah.
And these, the revenue upgrades, right? These buying up into a premium cabin, even fewer people know about this, right? We saw this years ago when Continental first started doing it, right? Nobody knew how it calculated the math, and it's unclear that anyone still knows how it calculates the math of the fare difference.
Yeah. So it's like people are trying to tell you one thing, and then they document the record. They're wrong. They document the record, and then that's the line that's held the entire time. Yeah.
Until you can get around them and have someone go, wait, this doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's an uphill battle that we've all fought at one point or another.
Yeah. So, I mean, just a general question for you, because you've flown BA more than me. If I fly business class, I won't have any problem getting into a lounge there to take a shower, will I?
No.
In London? Even on a connecting coach ticket?
No, you should be fine because you flew in on a premium cabin.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the regular lounge has your. Ooh, that's a good one. I think you should be fine.
I think so. I think I would have access to like the Ruby or the not the Ruby, the galleries, whatever
Yeah,
they're
the
the gallery
regular
stuff.
lounge. Yeah, so you, in T5, you would need to go to this, if you're assuming you're flying a T5, right? You want to go to the south one, because I
Okay.
think the showers are all in the south. I don't think the north one has showers, because the showers are part of the spa.
Gotcha. Okay.
The challenge from the last time I flew through there, right? You might not be able to get a shower, because there's a wait list.
I've got like 4 hours, so.
Yeah, here's the thing. They don't let you just sign up for the wait list.
What?
You basically it drove me crazy. Like there was no way to say I need a shower, put me on the list. No, because they used to give you pagers. No. Now you have to scan a QR code and just keep hitting refresh until it says until it lets you put yourself on the list.
Oh, you like scan a QR code at the check-in and then like for the shower, and then you refresh on your mobile to get access.
Yeah, basically you sit there in the lounge, right? Because it's the same code like if you were to sit down and order a meal or something. Right, you just scan that and then you can go in there and request a shower. And I don't remember, it was a few weeks ago and I'm a little blurring it, but I remember I was having to sit there and keep having to refresh to see, is a shower available? Let me go sign up.
Well, because I get it. I think the Portland flight kind of lands around the same time as like Vancouver and Seattle. So like
Okay.
I think I have a decent chance of getting a shower because it's later in the day. Like the flight leaves here at like 7:30 and it's been leaving 45 minutes delayed every day. So maybe I'll get lucky. And there won't be anybody there. But who knows? So we'll see. We'll find out in a week. I'll tell you in a week.
Okay.
All right. So I want to talk about a friend of mine. His parents, great credit. Talk a little bit about credit cards. Parents have great credit. He's been looking at credit cards for them, what's best for them, and they're going to be traveling a little bit more now. They have some grandchildren. They want to be flying, and they're based in Atlanta. So we were talking about what would be best for them, and they care mostly about nonstop. Like that's their goal is where can we get nonstop. So it's like, well, you're gonna go with Delta. Like that's out of Atlanta, Delta. So I said, well, why don't you do the Delta Amex? And he said, I like that idea because I can get bags for free, and they do like to check bags, and they can get some bonus points out of it. I'm like, yeah, it's good. And he says, but I'm also going to do the Chase Sapphire Reserve.
Okay.
And that way they can kind of mix up their spend, and if we don't like the Amex after a year, we can get rid of it. And I was like, that's a good idea. So his parents applied for the Chase Sapphire Reserve, got approved instantly. And then applied for the Delta Amex, like, I don't know, 45 minutes later, and were first denied and then given another offer of lower mileage, like lower bonus points, sign up bonus. And my friend's like, what gives with that? And I want to know your thoughts, and I'll give my thoughts, but I want to know what you think.
They applied, they got denied, and then how did they get the offer for lower mileage?
I think they reapplied again because they thought the message was maybe a mistake, like the denial was a mistake because their credit's really good. So it said they need additional time for processing,
Okay.
and then they would be notified within mail within 2 weeks. So at first they went to apply for the Delta Platinum and it had 75,000 miles plus 10,000 MQM offer. They were told they weren't eligible. And then it got bumped down to just 50,000 miles. And then they went to submit again, and they were told they weren't eligible. And then my friend did it, and was told it needs more history. And they have great credit, and they have a solid history with Amex. They've had an Amex card for forever. So it's just interesting. Like, what do you think happened?
Well, how many Amex cards do they have?
I think just one.
Okay. I mean, it could be any number of things, right? I think the first mistake they made was reapplying. The thing to do is even if you get a denial, pick up the phone, call the reconsideration line, and let them tell you what the actual issue is.
Gotcha. Like if it's too much of a balance outstanding, or there's some other thing with the credit, that could be it.
Because the thing interesting about Amex is, right, Amex does not pull a credit report when you apply for a card generally if you are an existing customer.
Gotcha.
They use their own internal metrics. So if you have a history with Amex, you can apply for cards without a hit on your credit report.
Gotcha. Do you think that their history with Amex maybe is too clean, and Amex doesn't see them as a money making venture?
I can't imagine that being a reason.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine like someone having too clean of a history. But if they, if there's something that set a flag off, or sometimes it could also be just as simple as mistaken identity,
Oh, okay.
or a mistaken identity, or needing to verify identity.
Gotcha. So call that reconsideration line just to see
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah.
I thought, I mean, and now that your explanation of Amex, it makes more sense. I thought Amex was going to say, well, I thought the issue might have been you applied for the CSR, it did a hard hit on your credit, and it immediately dinged Amex. Like Amex said, you've got too many hard hits. But it sounds like that's not really what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible they pulled a credit report, right? It depends on the history. I know the last couple of times I've applied for an Amex card, it does not hit my credit report. Now, it also, a hard inquiry is only a few points. It's not a major number of points on your score.
Yeah, but can't they see the number of inquiries recently?
Yeah, but if they just applied for the chase, right? Unless they did a bunch of other inquiries.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's
If they
true.
just applied for one card, that shouldn't have too much of an impact on the score overall.
Yeah, I thought it was weird, and so I wanted to talk about it here because it does seem strange. Because I know people who churn cards and they would apply for multiple cards in the same day and not have a problem. So,
Well, the reason to do that is because it's a whole game, right? So, say you apply for an Amex card and they use, say, Equifax, and then you apply for a Chase card and they use TransUnion, and you apply for, say, a Citi card and they use whatever the third one is right now, Experian.
yep.
If you do it all on the same day, those three inquiries will not know about the other one because it's all on the same day.
Gotcha.
They're generally not fast enough to propagate beyond their own system to the other sister systems.
I'm glad I don't churn cards. It seems like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and I don't think the reward is there like it used to be.
Yeah. Doing the sign up bonuses and everything is just not as good as it used to be, for sure.
Unless you're the one shilling the cards, then it's rewarding.
All right, let's talk about some news. SeaTac. This is interesting to me. So there's been a report now in the Seattle Times about a screw up in the new international terminal and having some limited capacity. So they're saying that the gates were built to handle 20, I think it's 20 jets, and
Yes.
they can only handle 16 at this point.
Excuse me, wide bodies.
Wide body jets.
Yeah, not just jets, but wide bodies.
And they when they did the fit checks for the airplanes, they found that 4 gates, A6, A8, S4, and S6, couldn't accommodate the large wide body jets that they were supposed to. And they spent a lot of money on this terminal. It's what?
Well,
60 million?
Oh no! It started at $330 million and ended up being almost $1 billion, like $980 million. Like,
well, they didn't add gates, right? Like that's the thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know Seattle well enough, right? I've only flown through Seattle once in probably 5 years at this point, so I can't definitively say. I know they built that massive air bridge, so people go up now into the A pier. So and they made the A gates international gates, but I don't know what other work they did. But they spent close to $1 billion, and they have a 20% reduction from what they were expecting in throughput on wide bodies. And so I guess this is causing them problems because they were expecting much more. Like, we know how constrained Seattle is for international gates to begin with.
Yeah.
And the 20% is a sizable amount.
Yeah, being able to fit 4 more planes is huge for them, especially at the peak hours, right? Like you've got anything at like 1 o'clock in Seattle is extremely busy with some of the inbound European stuff, some of the Asian stuff coming in. You've got, nothing really from Latin America, but really Europe and Asia. So, oh, and the Middle East, right? You've got Emirates and Qatar coming in at the same time. So it's definitely causing some problems, and I don't think that they actually did anything physically to the gates, because the S gates, which is the remote south terminal, right? They didn't change anything there. It's still the same crowded cluster that it's been for forever. And so, oh, go ahead.
I'd like $1 billion to do nothing.
Yeah, I mean, they built the air bridge, right? And they built the new passenger processing area, like the international processing area, right, where you go through immigration and customs.
That should not cost $1 billion, dude.
I know. But I'm just saying, like, that's what was done. I don't see any. I mean, I've been through SeaTac a few times now, and I've been down to the S gates where the international flights leave. And to me, it looks like the same old SeaTac that it's been for forever. Maybe the A gates have changed a little bit because of the way it's expanded and the way that they had to kind of move things around. But it doesn't. It's not. They didn't add gates, so.
Well, that's the peculiar thing, right? When I saw you a few weeks ago, my flight to Portland actually flew out of the South Gates, which I was surprised about, that Alaska was doing a departure out of the South Gates.
Well, it's probably because the plane came from like Cabo or something.
Which is definitely possible. I was still a little surprised, but I'm like, fine, no big deal. But I was expecting, after all this work, something different, and there was nothing different. It looked like the same crap hole it used to be.
And take the 2 trains, right? Yeah, it's a mess. Like, SeaTac is an absolute mess, in my opinion. I don't know how people put up with it week in and week out. It would drive me bonkers to deal with it. So yeah, I don't know what they did, but it's definitely. I mean, a lot of people are talking about it. I think there's a lot of like uproar about it. The airport, the Port Authority in Seattle is suing the construction company because of this. I don't know how I feel. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, were you guys not paying attention when all this was being done? Like, I don't understand. Did you just let them kind of go and do their thing, and you showed up at the end and go, oh, this doesn't work?
I mean, allegedly, from what I was reading, right, the airport says they called out for each of the gates what the largest plane that gate should be able to handle.
Mm-hmm.
And the construction company says, we were just told every gate needs to be able to handle a narrow body.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And it's like, well, one of those two parties is probably incorrect in what they're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what Seattle's what their fix for this is going to be. Are they going to close more of the A gates and make them international, and kind of like make them so they can have international rivals? I don't know how you do that at this point. I think it's a little late in the game to try that, but maybe they can come up with something.
They can build a remote terminal in Tacoma.
I don't actually know. I think if you're at the A gates, you come in and then you go downstairs just like you do at the S gates. So like when you park at an international flight, you kind of go downstairs underground and then get popped up inside of the immigration area, I think. So I don't know what they would do. They're gonna have to do something though. Maybe they'll bus people like they do at Portland.
Like, on the public side, right, it'd be really freaking nice if we could go back to these institutions and say, give us our money back.
Yeah.
Like you guys screwed up, right? You guys are completely mismanaging. Like, this is a mismanagement of $1 billion. And I love, like, the Seattle Times did an article, and they're like, no taxpayer money went to this. And like, bullshit. Right? Yeah. Like, they used a bunch of the pandemic money, and that's where a bunch of that $1 billion came from.
Yeah.
Because they only budgeted 300-something million originally.
I think it's kind of typical of public projects lately, and I like infrastructure projects. I think they're good and we need them, but the management of them is not great.
Well, yeah, I mean, wasn't it at JFK like last week? They had to stop construction.
Oh yeah, those workers were killed, right?
Yeah, there were, in T7, I think, something collapsed. Like they were working on an active building, and there were two workers who were rerouting utilities or something, and something collapsed, and they got crushed.
Yeah, it was they were in a like a dugout, like a trench, and
Yeah.
the trench collapsed. Yeah. I mean, which is awful, and it's like, well, why are these things happening? And I don't know. Maybe it's the management of those construction companies. Are the cities and the port authorities cut out to manage these types of projects? And do they
No.
need help? They basically need help to do it.
I mean, the port authorities, and more so the port authorities than the cities, because I think some of the city-run airports run a little more efficiently. But the port authorities are just there for the grift, from what I can tell. Right. These guys are more about self-serving rather than serving the public. Like, take the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, right? They've been raking in money all these years. They've invested no money in the facilities until the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Right?
And that was because people complained.
Yeah. And so you have to wonder, like, where is this money going, right? In the case of Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, they dumped a bunch of money into One World Trade Center, right? And then they couldn't even fill it. It's like, was that a good use of money?
Yep.
Right, we were really there stroking someone's ego more than anything else. And I wonder, with all the money we're dumping into airports as the economy is contracting, is this the right place to be dumping money right now?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. It's a fair question. I mean, I think we've seen some good projects, right? Like Kansas City being put into one terminal and having a single, they've made it to where they've streamlined the Kansas City experience. And I think that was the right move for them, because that airport had aged well beyond its years. Right. So,
but again, that was neglect, right? Like, think of that building was built in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Right, and that was it. They never invested anything into it.
Yeah. Well, and 9/11 kind of immediately made it obsolete, right? Like it was built, and then 9/11 happened, and everyone had to go through security. And
I think it was before 9/11, though, right? Security happened before 9/11.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, good point. So, I mean, they had the implementation. I think that was the thing. It was an implementation of a security rule where everyone had to go through security, and that basically killed the concept that they were going for.
Yeah, because they wanted to roll out of your car. Like DFW, you can see this internally at the DFW. The distance from the gates to the curb is actually minimal.
Yep.
And Kansas City was the preliminary design for that approach, right? DFW was based on the Kansas City design.
Yep. So. Let's talk about Dubai. There's a bunch of stuff going on. So Dubai is trying to kick the tires on DWC, which is Dubai World Central Airport, the kind of the secondary airport in Dubai. And they were going to do an expansion. I think it was going to start. It was going to be done 2017, and then there was the financial crisis, and they said we'll do it in 2027. It'll be done, and then all that expansion was frozen in 2019, and then COVID happened, and now they are saying that they want to invest $33 billion in DWC. And they want to be able to handle 130 million passengers annually by 2030, which is insane.
Yeah. But if you've got the land and you've got the space to do it, it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, do you think Emirates is pushing this?
I mean, Emirates would need to relocate, right? They couldn't have a split operation to achieve this.
Yeah.
And the current airport is somewhat landlocked.
Yep.
Given everything around it. So, I mean, it could be Emirates pushing it. It might be the Dubai government pushing it, seeing what's on the horizon. Right? You've got the massive Istanbul airport. You've got Hamad and Doha, much larger, right? Much more potential to be larger.
Yep.
Than Dubai is.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, Emirates is probably going to dump the A380s at some point in the future. Probably not immediately, but, in 10, 15 years. And they're going to need planes to replace those, and they're probably going to need more planes to replace those A380s because Airbus isn't making them. So they're going to need more planes to carry the same number of passengers or more passengers. So you're going to need more gates. From that perspective, I see this as being it's a necessity rather than a a nice to have, because Dubai, the current Dubai airport's not going to handle that.
But do you really need more gates, right? And I'm going to play devil's advocate here, right? Think of the large portion of the traffic going through Dubai is connecting traffic.
Yeah.
Right. If you just increase the number of frequencies and add a bank or two, do you really need more gates? Right. You're just better utilizing those gates.
I think the reason you may need more gates is because a lot of your banks have to operate in the night, right? Like you can't operate some of these flights in the daytime because of heat.
Oh, okay, that's a fair point.
Like you're forced to, like, they have to either depart in the morning or they have to depart late at night, and so you're kind of limited by that. That's the only thing I can think of needing more gates.
But like you could, if I remember correctly, most of those flights back to the States leave in the evening, right? You could have like a 4 or 5 a.m. departure.
You could, yeah, for sure.
Right, and bring in connecting traffic for that 4 or 5 a.m. departure.
That's where I think it gets a little more difficult, because if you're like connecting to India, right, and those Indian flights are coming in, it's pretty mixed right now. Like Bangalore on an A380, I think leaves in the middle of the morning, like 10 a.m. to get to Dubai, which is kind of a weird time. And I think they have another flight to Bangalore that leaves at like 2 a.m. That one would work because you're going backwards in time. But I don't know that the A380 would work, which is where you're carrying most of your passengers.
Yeah, but I mean, we're thinking past A380s, right?
Yeah.
The economics of the A380s they is a little different than anything else that would replace them at this point.
Yeah.
Right. So if as those 380s go away and they have to increase frequencies, they could add another bank. Right. They could have a Bangalore flight leave in the afternoon to connect to an early evening flight out of Dubai.
True. Yeah, I mean, do you think too that part of this is just the aging of the Dubai airport? Like, right, it's not modern, it's not Istanbul, it's weathered now, right? I mean, it's not the most lovely airport,
but it's convenient.
It is, compared to Dubai World Center, yes, for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's this is the age-old argument, right? Do you build a new airport and take away the convenience, or do you leave the old airport? You know, the locals will more often than not say leave the old airport.
Yeah, I would rather fly out of the one that's close to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Trying to think if there's, I'm looking on a map here. I mean, your other options are Abu Dhabi, right? Is the other airport, and that's not close either.
No.
So, yeah, it's tough. It's a tough call.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that far, but it's 2-hour bus ride between the two, I think, right?
Yeah, it's around that. Yep.
So it's probably an hour from DWC.
Yep. So you're cutting that travel time in half with DWC, basically.
Right, unless the intent is to also take away the Abu Dhabi airport.
Do you think they would do that, though?
It's possible. Anything's possible.
That would kind of screw Etihad, right?
I mean, it would and it wouldn't, right? It's like Etihad is connecting. The bulk of the traffic on Etihad is also connecting.
Yeah.
So does it matter where it connects?
They could just do it and fly out of DWC if they wanted.
Yeah, and then I also wonder, right? Like, is some of this is the resurrection of DWC because of what's happening in Saudi Arabia?
And trying to connect passengers everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah. And on top of this, right, let's talk about that. Dubai and Canada, I guess the Emirates and Canada have agreed to more flights between both countries. And immediately, Emirates has said we're adding daily flights, I believe, to Toronto, is it?
Toronto, yeah, because I believe it's 5 weekly right now, so they're going to 7 weekly, so 1 a day, and it's like within 2 weeks that they're adding these.
Yeah, and that's so. I mean, it's the bilateral agreement basically has been agreed upon, and so I think currently it's like 7 times on Air Canada weekly between Toronto and Dubai. Emirates is 5 times weekly between Toronto and Dubai, and Etihad is 6 times weekly between Abu Dhabi and Toronto. So I mean, I think what we're going to immediately see is the Emirates flight to Toronto going to daily, and then you could also see Emirates adding something to maybe Montreal and Vancouver, or even Etihad doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. The question is, what do they add next? I mean, I imagine they go for Vancouver before Montreal, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think from the West Coast, I think it definitely helps. And doesn't Emirates have an agreement with Air Canada?
They do.
Yeah, so that could help them, right? Like if they fly into Vancouver and connecting, Winnipeg and the West Edmonton and the western side of the country, would be nice.
Well, I mean, I guess the question is, would you go from Edmonton or Winnipeg to Vancouver to go back east?
That's a good question. I think it depends on timings, right? Like when can you actually get from Edmonton to Toronto in time to connect to the Emirates flight?
I'm sure you can. Have you seen how many domestic flights Air Canada runs?
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, it could be. But you also have all the Air Canada flights to like Kelowna, to all like Victoria, everywhere that's like much further west,
the more remote place. But the question, here's the thing about an Emirates, either an Emirates or an Abu Dhabi flight from Vancouver. Where do you go beyond Dubai or Abu Dhabi that isn't more efficient to go west?
I mean, it's a question that people ask me all the time. Is like, why did you go through Singapore to go to India? I was like, well, because it's the same either way, and I could avoid Frankfurt. Like, if I'm going to spend 24 hours flying, I'd rather fly on Singapore and spend my connection time in Singapore than fly to Frankfurt and hang out in the Z gates for fun.
Yeah. Right now with the Russian embargo, right? In the India patch makes sense to go through the Middle East, but beyond that, Australia doesn't make sense. Southeast Asia,
maybe Africa.
Okay.
I think Africa is like probably the one place, like all of Africa, I think covering it, unless you're willing to fly United or Ethiopian to connect in like Addis or something.
And I think it would also depend where you're going, because Air Canada has flights to Morocco, Egypt.
Yeah, they have Marrakesh, or is it Casablanca? Maybe
Casablanca.
Yeah, from Montreal, and then Cairo from Toronto, I think.
No, Cairo is Montreal. Egypt Air does Toronto.
Oh, okay. And then I think they have Tel Aviv as well, don't they?
They do, but there's somewhere else I can't remember. There's a third spot in Africa they fly to.
Is it Algeria?
It could be.
Because it's French speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I where else would you go? Yeah, I mean southern Africa, the southern half of Africa.
Yeah, but to go to Dubai or Abu Dhabi, to go to Cape Town or Joburg is.
Are you going to complain about going out of the way?
For most people, it's not practical.
I know. I'm just giving you crap. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's weird. It is weird, for sure. So, let's talk about Amsterdam. So a court has blocked their green cap. So they were back in June of 2022. The government announced plans to basically reduce the number of total flights allowed at Schiphol.
Yep.
And I think it was something like 500,000 flights per year, and they wanted to bring it down to like 440,000 a year. And it was supposed to take effect later this year. And there was a district court for North Holland, and it has sided with the airlines, which was KLM, I think Delta and EasyJet all took this to court, and that the government didn't use the right procedures and has stopped the decision to be carried out.
Yeah, they basically, if I remember correctly, the court basically said they didn't consult with the airlines. They're supposed to consult with the airlines. Yeah. So it'll be interesting how this plays out, because I don't think they're done fighting this. I think this is more of a stay than a victory. Yeah,
I mean, I think I could see the government saying, look, this has got to happen, and going back and having the discussions they need to with the airlines, and then saying, okay, we did everything right, and then moving this through. I could see that happening.
There's a very easy way to do this as a government. You start closing concourses.
Under construction for forever.
Yep, like literally, right? You can't sure, you can land, but there won't be a gate for you.
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's completely within their control.
Yeah, that'd be rough. Oh
Well,
man.
if you're gonna play like this is the game, right? The airlines push back, and now if the government really wants to do this, they'll find a way to do it.
Yep. Yep. And then lastly, before we get to the bonus topics, so the bonus topics, there's a couple. We're going to talk about an AA passenger getting kicked off a flight, and then Norse forgetting immigration at JFK. But before that, what happened at Newark recently that got you a little excited? I think
The iPads are finally gone
from OTG.
from all the OTG establishments.
So there's someone taking orders now, or what's happening?
I haven't gotten that far. That would require me to use the OTG establishments, which I don't. But when you walk through the terminal, all the iPads are gone.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wonder how that's gonna. I mean, I didn't like the iPads. I always got my order was screwed up or things were wrong or whatever.
That wasn't the iPad. That was the people.
Well, yeah, true. But I never enjoyed going up to an iPad and then like, oh, tip us, okay, for what? Don't you get paid?
Like, it's funny, right? So if we go back in the Wayback Machine when OTG was introduced, at least from the United perspective, a common friend of ours that worked for United at the time was like, well, this is good because the service will get better and the food will get better. And that never really came to fruition.
No, the food was. I think food was way worse.
The food was way worse, and the service was worse. The only thing that changed was the prices went up 20, 30, 40%. And, the airlines love this because it's a revenue share agreement. So they get, like, those. Sure, they don't mind them raising the prices because they get a kickback from some percentage of all the transactions.
Yep.
But that same person in a recent conversation was like, "Oh, good, they're finally like going away," because it was just been an abysmal experience. So it was just interesting that all these years later, he finally admitted that.
Great.
It wasn't great. Right, like, and the like OTG is just like I candidly haven't used them in probably over a year, but I remember like 2-3 years ago, it used to be like they would want you to order first, and then they'd give you your food. Then it became that. With no documentation, like, oh no, you can't order first. You need to pay first.
Yeah.
Then it became like, and literally, I remember one time, like, you would order something, and the woman, like, they would take the order, you would pay for the order, then like, oh yeah, we don't have that.
And you're like, so you just took my money? Can you refund it? Oh, I got to get a manager. They're not working right now.
And by the way, like, when I mean they didn't have it, I mean things like fries.
Oh yeah, I saw that plenty. Yeah, especially over in like. Like over at the far, whatever those, the 120 gates.
Yep.
There was a burger spot over there. They would run out of stuff all the time. I found it really just not. It was off-putting to the point where I was just like, I'll go get a snack from one of the little Hudson News. Which then again, you have to pay yourself. You have to do everything, check it out yourself, everything. And half the time it doesn't work, and then you have to have an employee come over and do it for you anyway. So it was just Anyway, it's not fun.
Yeah, if I need to get food at Newark, I take the effort to either go to the diner or the Wendy's or the Dunkin' Donuts because I know they're not OTG.
That Wendy's though, man, that's an experience. You might be there for 45 minutes waiting for your food.
But that's anything in Newark. But like, candidly, the thing I've really got into at this point, and what I encourage people to is, don't buy food at the airport. Just take it with you. Like, I now have a routine where I go to an Italian deli, I get a sandwich before I go to the airport, and then I sit there and eat that.
Yeah, that's true. I much prefer. I mean, on this BA flight that I have coming up, right, like Portland to London, there's some great food in Portland, like in the airport. I'm just gonna buy something. I'll eat dinner before I go to the airport, or I'll take something with me from like a sandwich shop that I really like, and I'll just eat that. Because why spend the money?
Why spend the money? And like, you're spending more money on food that's shittier.
Yeah, and can take longer, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else you want to talk about?
Nah, I think I've rented enough this week.
Well, we do have a new Patreon subscriber, Bradley A. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. We appreciate it. I'm sure there's some more coming in that we haven't gotten to yet, so we'll add those later on. But thanks for listening to the show, and if you want to stick around and get the bonus topics, You can join us on Patreon, or you can check out moredotsmorelines.com, on Twitter @dotslines. Leave us a comment. We do like to hear from you all, and we'll talk to you next time. Happy travels.
Take care.